In our December 12th regular council meeting. Welcome, everybody. Bienvenue tout le monde. I'd like to welcome people who are watching online as well. Just thank you for joining us. We'll call the meeting to order. We don't have any regrets. Everybody is here this evening. Number 2 on the agenda, there is always the invitation to stand and move at any time during the meeting. If you feel the need, feel free to do so. Number 3, approval of the agenda. Are there any additions to the agenda that anybody would like to make? Okay, seeing none, we will approve the agenda as presented. Conflict of interest declaration. Does anybody have a conflict of interest that they need to declare on any of the agenda items this evening? You may do so at any time during the meeting as well. If something comes up, you can declare it at that time. Okay, seeing none, we will continue on. Number 4, we do not have any presentations this evening. Number 5, adoption of minutes. We have the minutes of the November 21st, 2024 regular council meeting. I assume you've had the chance to look at the meeting minutes. Are there any errors, issues with the meeting minutes? Councillor Foster?
Yes, Madam Chairman. I saw that I was included as being a member of the Mariners Center Expansion Committee, and that is an error in the minutes.
Thank you. So we
So
can
I would-
clarify that. So rather than have you, it is Councillor Surratt who is actually a member of the Expansion
Okay,
Committee.
Thank you.
Other than that, any other errors anybody has noticed? Okay, seeing none, the minutes stand approved as presented with that one amendment. Next, we have recognizing Argyle, our council announcements. Is there anybody who has something that they would like to share with us tonight for recognizing Argyle? Okay. Councillor Digdon?
Yes, thank you. Not so much for recognizing Argyle, but I guess just sort of putting this out there for the people. With the holiday season and that coming upon us, I know that it's a very joyous time for a lot of people, but I also know that it's a very sad time and a hard time for a lot of people. And I'd just like the people that may be watching or anyone that may need our help, now I'm saying that as our help as councillors, to please reach out if they think we can help them in any way. We have a lot of contacts. We work with a lot of different agencies. So nobody has to be in it by themselves or nothing like that. We're there for them. We'll be there with them, and we'll do whatever we can for them. So that's all. Just
Thank you
want
for
to put
that.
that out. Thank you.
Councillor Digdon. Does anybody else have anything else they would like to announce? Okay, seeing none, we will continue on. Next, number 7, Warden's report. My report is attached. It is fairly brief because I had COVID for a week, so I was not able to do a whole lot. Any questions on my report? Okay, seeing none, we will continue on. Committee reports. So there is an attachment with committee reports. So this is kind of our official list of our different committees and the councillors who are assigned to each of those committees. So I'm sure you've had the chance to go through them. Does everything look okay? Okay, we don't need a motion for that. That was just, we've moved that already.
Yeah, there may have been some small adjustments on the list.
Have there?
Further
down?
Oh, it's further down, okay.
Okay. Further down on the agenda, you mean? Okay. Right.
Okay.
We are going to discuss that.
I was ahead of it.
Okay. So next on the agenda, we have presentation of priorities of councillors. So we typically do this in one of our first couple of meetings. We like to let our residents know, district by district, what our priorities will be for the upcoming term. So we will give you each the opportunity to say a few words to let your residents know what our priorities are. I thought we could go district by district. Is that okay? So we can start with district number 1, which is Councillor Madden.
Yes, thank you, Warden Albright. I don't have a whole lot right now, just starting over, brand new, trying to get my feet wet again. And so some stuff that I would like to see down the future is looking at having some kind of medical system in Argyle. I grew up here with a doctor in Tuscot, and I think that as hard as it can be to find a facility for people, and I know it's hard throughout the province, throughout Canada, the medical system, but I think if we start now and start looking for some ideas and put it out there, that I think we could have a medical system in the Tuscany area. I think is very much needed. If we don't look at it, we'll never get it. So that would be one of my priorities. We'll go from there. Thank you.
Thank you. District number 2.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Press your button. Your mic. Councillor Sloan.
Thank you,
Deputy
Madam
Warden.
Chair. I wrote down a few things here. So the most resounding issue, as I knocked on doors 4 years ago, was sidewalks for the community of Plymouth. I promised to do as best I could to bring about well-needed sidewalks for the community. I remain steadfast in this endeavor. We have come a long ways, and through our recreation department, we have recently secured funds and have already had the area surveyed. The land survey has enabled engineers to draw conceptual designs to help identify what best fits the area and will be showcased to the public on January 7 in an open house session at the Plymouth School. These are all positive and forward steps towards achieving our goal for sidewalks in Plymouth. On another note, there is a lot going on, both big and small, all deserving of our attention. I strongly believe that we have a responsibility to support administration with tools and manpower necessary for them to do their work. There has been a considerable increase in municipality workload, including both council and municipal staff, just in the past 4 years. Some predictable and some not. However, one should expect the unexpected. And I believe our CAO should be armed with the tools and resources necessary to deal with the unexpected. Council, through motions, gives the CAO directives to which staff implements. They do our bidding, and good council is reflective of a good staff, and vice versa. It is only fitting that we do our best to ensure that they have the resources needed to do their jobs. Thank you.
Thank you. District 3, Councillor Boudreau.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The first time I ran over 4 years ago, one of my major concerns was the Jackards Road. It's a very busy road. It's where Wedgeport Lobsters, the Breakwater Wharf, and Ocean Pride Fisheries, big trucks, and very narrow road. And hoping to get that widened. Every time I see Colton LeBlanc, I remind him, we've got to widen that road. So that's one of my major concerns. Secondly, working with the wind farm committees, spreading the community fund where everybody benefits in our community. Also, abandoned old houses is my pet peeve. I hate seeing old houses. They're an eyesore. I want them demolished. And one more thing, support the Municipality of Argyle for economic growth. Keep that going. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Boudreau. District 4, Councillor Foster.
Yes. Okay.
Go ahead.
Yes, Madam Warden. The things, I ran in a campaign, and I went door to door, and I went to almost every house in the district. And among the things that I heard the most concern about was the condition of some of the secondary roads, which are in real bad shape. They require paving, they require ditching, they require guardrails. They require the trees and the bushes to be cut alongside the road. There is a road in the Amuros Hill area, Schmatour des Bit, where every time a school bus meets oncoming traffic, they have a tendency to have their mirrors torn off by the branches because there's nowhere else to go. It's such when you got oncoming traffic. And in fact, there was a similar incident to that just the other day, whereas the mirror didn't get torn off the bus, but it got flattened parallel to the side of the bus. And so that is a big issue. We've also got erosion that's eating away at a brand-new road in Morris Island. I've actually seen the posts are just brand spanking new guardrail posts that are hanging into nothing at all because the sea has eroded away the side of the shore. And the only way you could protect that is, I suppose, with the use of armor stone. So secondary roads was a big issue. People are worried about flooding because with the rising tides, we're seeing partial flooding along some of our highways. The area down by the Hanging Oak Antique Shop, when there's a high course tide, there's salt grass, marsh grass, almost on the yellow line. So it's flooding half of the road. Also, we're seeing this issue with the Pas de Prés area that separates Hubbard's Point from Amiros Hill. If this road becomes totally flooded, if we have an extreme storm event, there's no escape route for the people from Morris Island, from Amiros Hill all the way to Morris Island. There is no escape route if they get flooded in. And so they're concerned about that. The Department of Transport in recent years has raised the rose bed in Rocco Point. They've also raised the rose bed on the Tittle Road, going all the way down to Surratt's Island, the end of Lower Surratt's Island. But there's need for guardrails there. I know these are of a provincial jurisdiction, but we have to bring these things to the attention of our provincial partners so that hopefully something can be done about it. So that seemed to be the main concern was roads, is what I heard the most going door to door. There is some infrastructure that people would like to see. The wharf in Hubbard's Point is basically falling down into the Tusket River. It's being used quite extensively in the springtime by the Gasboro fishermen. And they're forced to tie their boats along the wharf. And at low tide, the boats are landing on a pile of rocks that have fallen out of the crib work. There's also need for repairs at the Twin Village Social Club in Amiros Hill. They need a new roof. They need an expanded kitchen area. They need new appliances for the kitchen. Those are the types of things I've heard. And of course, people want sidewalks and streetlights. In the Hubbard's Point area where I live, there's a lot of people like to walk around the Chemin de la Pointe. But when they're walking on the main road, all the traffic from the tip of Morris Island to Hubbard's Point passes there, and it's a straightaway. So there's also an issue with speeding and a narrow shoulder. Surratt's Island, they recently paved the road, but there's no place to walk on the side of the road. All you have is not a concrete, but an asphalt gutter. So people are walking in a gutter. And if traffic comes too close, there have been incidents of people falling into the ditch to avoid being struck by a vehicle. So there's lots of, I would be happy to bring any staff members or department heads or whoever, or including our MLA, to come on a ride with me, and I could show him physically some of these dangerous situations that do exist. So there's need for lighting at the Pas de Prés Marsh in Amiros Hill. There's need probably for guardrails there, because when you have a blizzard, you can't see where the road is. So that was among the biggest issues. And another big issue this summer was the mosquito infestation. It really affects people's quality of life. They're basically being eaten alive when they try to do anything outdoors. We've also had an issue lately here of dry wells, because it has been quite dry this fall. Anyway, in a nutshell, those are the major issues that I heard on the doorstep.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
District 5 is mine. So going door to door, some of the things that I heard about was our fire services. So I have a fair amount of people involved in fire departments in my district. So we did start a fire services review. I would like to see that, followed through on, not just having spent the money on it, see the report, and that's it. I'm hoping that we're going to look into modernizing our fire departments because we know they're the heart of our communities, and we know we have amazing departments run by volunteers, and we want to make sure that not only our residents are safe, but our firefighters are safe as well. So that's something that I hope we continue to work on. And another thing that's kind of linked to that is cell service. So I know there has been a survey done by the Wren, and that's something that they're looking into. But in my district, there are areas that has very poor cell service, and they are remote. Those areas are remote. So I'm hoping that's something that we can work on together as well. Housing is another one for me. I've had conversations already with our CAO about kind of what I would like to see happen. It may not be exactly, it's gonna be multi-step, but we are in the process of looking to hire a housing coordinator. And the hope is kind of to help people set the stage for housing developments to be able to happen in the Municipality of Argyle. So what can we do to help those people? Also, I would like to see an inventory of what do we have available out there? What is there out there? And how can we help people if they're looking for housing? And the last one is always growth. And I'm labeling it as growth because it's more than just economic growth. That's important, diversifying our economy. I feel like we've taken some chances on some things over the last 12 years that I've been on council, and sometimes it's scary to take chances, but we can't stay the same. We have to move ahead, we have to grow, and part of growth is definitely new jobs, diversifying the economy, but it's also, I always have a recreation focus, and I like to make sure that people who are, we have had, when I started on council, people were moving away. Now people are coming back, and there's a reason they're coming back. So if they're coming back, we want to make sure that they stay. And part of that is the recreation piece. We have the Mariner Center expansion. That's a huge factor in that. I'm absolutely looking forward to having that finished. And also, we, in our own municipality, we've worked on the Glenwood Park. We've done some improvements, and we have a plan to continue to do that. Doctor recruitment is another one. We will have a conversation, because I do have some information for you on that one, but continuing to make sure that we can bring doctors here and keep them here for our residents. So those are some of the pieces in terms of growth that I'm looking forward to working on in my term. Thank you. District 6, Councillor LeBlanc.
Thank you. Warden Albright. Like everybody else, we all want sidewalks. In my district, there are no sidewalks. And most people right now are walking on the side of the road. It is a busy road with a lot of traffic. Saying that, we do have our trails. The problem that has taken place right now, and which I want to make as a focus, is that those trails are beat up. They're loaded with potholes, they're loaded with water and mud, to the point of where I used to see every day a lot of our residents walking on the trails, and they're not anymore, because in the area that they're at, you just can't get through without getting wet or stepping in the mud or on the side. At $1,500, or approximately $1,500 a meter for a sidewalk, it really makes a lot of sense that if we can't put sidewalks in every place, which obviously we can't, then maybe we can, as a council, look at putting more money into our trail system and getting those trails improved and upgraded on a yearly basis, so that people do have places to walk without having to face walking on the side of the road of vehicles going by. On a personal experience over the summer, I actually had to jump into the ditch with my dogs because a vehicle just did not see me. And it was, again, a situation that I don't want any resident to have to go through. And so I think that's something that we need to look at. Along with that, the other things that I've had people talk to me in regards to is, in which I was really glad to see, but with Glenwood Park. And we would actually like to see that even improve to having a playground area into the park for the kids, for grandparents to bring their grandchildren. On a personal level, along with a bunch of others, and I know that we used to say that all of Argyle is a dog park. I don't really agree with that. I'd really love to have an area of having a dog park, to be able to bring our animals and responsible pet owners that keep their animals on leashes, to bring them to a place to be able to run around and do. Looking at Argyle as a whole, though, it's again, and I fully agree with you, when we talk about growth, it's not just economic growth. And I think that has to be something that we focus on. And if we're looking to grow the population and to bring people here, it's again, recreation is going to be a big part of that. That's what doctors are looking for. That's what people are looking for. They're looking for that full experience of being able to bring their families to an area where everything is offered to them. So those are really the things that I'm looking to focus on right now in the beginning. Obviously, that could change next year at any given time, depending on what comes up. But at this point, that's what I'm looking at.
Thank you. District, Councillor,
Yes, could
Foster.
I ask a question or make a comment about what Councillor LeBlanc just said? My concern about the trail system is that we have a lot of bears in our community in the summertime, and people are scared. People are scared, and a lot of people won't walk the trails because they're afraid of encountering bears. There's actually bears everywhere in our community. People seem to think it's worse because of the fires between Barrington and Shelburne. I don't know how true that is. But I just wanted to add, I hear you, Darrell, and I agree that the trails would be a good alternative, but if people are going to be too afraid to use them because of bears, I just wanted to throw that in there. Maybe somebody has a comment to add to that.
thank you. Councillor Work, District 7.
Thank you, Warden. My priority is to work closely with council and staff to encourage sustainable growth and make positive improvements in our municipality. We have opportunities to drive progress across our communities, and that's from renewable energy projects to affordable housing. And we must approach them with a commitment to balance responsible growth. In my district, I am focused on projects that support our community, such as repairing the Hipson Bridge, which has been on my bucket list since whenever. And this is a vital part of our local heritage that needs attention. And maintaining the water tank, which is in progress, but protecting the water supply for our fishing industry and safety of our community. Enhancing and preserving our trails, I guess that's mentioned a few times here. Our trails offer residents recreational opportunities and support our community's connection to nature. So keeping them well-maintained is essential. And lastly, on my personal priorities is the fisheries, supporting our fisheries. This is the backbone of our municipality. This is not just a priority, it's a necessity for the well-being of our community. Together, by working collaboratively and prioritizing these goals, I believe we can create sustainable progress that makes a positive difference now and for our future generations. Thank you.
Thank you. District 8, Councillor Dignan.
Thank you. It's hard when you're this far down the
Right.
line. You've heard a lot of good priorities and support them all 100%. One thing I'd definitely like to look at, there's been an election, and it's sort of, I've mentioned it here before, and I'll mention it again. I feel as though our airport, and when I say our airport, that I'm saying that airport stretches from people from Shelburne around to Digby. And I feel as though we definitely have to get some funding, whether it be provincial, federal, or both. Because the majority of the times the airport is used for life flights, whether they be flying patients in or out or both at sometimes. Search and rescue, lands and forests when they're fighting fires down here. And we've seen that, there was a big forest fire here summer before last down in Shelburne area, and every evening the airport was full with planes and that. So thank God the airport was there for everyone that needed it. but I just feel as though we have to get some funding for it, because a lot of people don't know, but that airport is owned between the town of Yarmouth, the municipality of Yarmouth, and ourselves, Municipality of Argyle, and we're putting out in the vicinity of over $200,000 a year ourselves, each municipality in town, to keep that airport going right now. So I just feel as though we could do a lot if we had more. If we had, money to help us maintain that airport, we could do a lot more for our people in our area. Another thing that I was looking at is, and it's been said here quite a few times this evening, is I feel as though we have to sell our municipality. We have to put it out there. We have to make it a place that people want to at least come visit and spend a few days with us. And hopefully people want to move into and be part of. And as far as growth, it's like a gentleman told me once, it's like a plant. And that when a plant stops growing, it starts dying. And that's pretty well, whether it's a plant or a municipality, we have to make sure we continue to grow. And I did mark it down. It's been talked about now provincially, and it is provincial regulations. But maybe it is time to possibly talk with our MLA and talk about a spring bear hunt, because it's something that's not happening in Nova Scotia. It happens in other provinces, but it may be time to look at a spring bear hunt, around this area, because I know the bears lately have really been taken off and creating a lot of problems. So, and I'm sure I was thinking of one more, but I'm looking over at my counterpart over there, and I'm not going to steal her thunder by no means, but thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Digdon. And last but certainly not least, District 9, Councillor Surratt.
I see a theme happening. I think I'm going to be going last a lot.
Next time we'll start with 9 and
We
we'll go
can cover
backwards.
9. Anyway, but the nice thing about going last is I get to hear all the great ideas, which is awesome. My priorities are during campaigning, I heard a lot and talked to a lot of constituents, and one of my top priorities is to continue to listen to people and hear what their needs are, and to try to meet those needs and work with our partners and work with our municipal leaders and our municipal colleagues to, meet those needs at where they're at. Also welcoming newcomers. We have lots of newcomers to the community. They're awesome. I mean, they bring so many skills and so much growth, and they're really great for our community. Balancing that with preserving our culture and language. So we don't want to lose our culture and language, but we also want to welcome newcomers and invite them into our culture and language. There's another piece around safety. How do we watch for safety? I'm hearing about bears, I'm hearing about roads, and I think safety is a big concern. We, in District 9, have a big commercial industry. There's lots of very big trucks on the roads. They're going very fast. It's a busy, busy road. There's also safety concerns around animals, dogs, and things like that. So addressing some of the safety concerns are really important. Going on the recreation note, we have a lot of people who are no longer walking the roads because of those safety concerns. So how do we meet those, two pieces? And supporting growth, and I had put supporting economic growth, so I'm really glad you brought up, because it really is about supporting growth in other ways, and it is looking at the fisheries, and it is looking at the newcomers, and it is inviting folks, but in order to do that, we have to have the housing infrastructure. We have to have the jobs. We have to have the infrastructure to meet the needs, and even our roads are not met for the growing population that we have. So how do we work with our provincial and federal leaders to get what we need to do to create Argyle? We're in an amazing place, and how do we really invite people in, but also have the infrastructure so that they can live comfortably like we all do?
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. That was excellent. CAO Muse, would you like to say?
Just thank you very much for listing those priorities. I just want to make sure that everybody's clear, like that these priorities have all been listed. So they've all been captured and collected. Obviously, there's some common themes, But I think what we would like to do to support you in the next 4 years is sooner rather than later, start to integrate your thoughts and priorities into the strategic planning that we have, into the priorities we have for the next 4 years. It's one thing to say something. It's another thing to kind of put things together. There may have been conflicting priorities in here today, and I just want to also mention the fact that, you know, we can't do every single thing that we have listed here, but we should be taking a look at that strategically as a team so that 5 of 9 at least can agree on priorities that happen over the year and maybe over the 4 years. So I just want to, it was intentionally put on the agenda by myself and the warden to get you thinking about that, but we're going to have some working through in order to get that going to actually get into place the things that you'd like to see. Because every election has different priorities, and we have to be nimble. So anyway, I just didn't want to, this isn't just to talk, right? This is going to be put into a report of some sort.
Thank you. Next, we have 8B, additional committee appointments. So once, at our last meeting, we set out our committee appointments, and then we looked at the list, and we realized we missed a few things. So we're just going to tighten things up and clean up a few things. So you see on the agenda, one of those things is Mariner Center Nominating Committee. We completely forgot about that one. So that is when there are residents who put their name to be on the Mariner Center board, they have to be nominated. So there's a committee that actually does that. Last year, it was Councillor Boudreau and Councillor Saulnier that were on that committee. It's not a committee that meets very often, but we do need 2 councillors to be on that committee. Would you be willing to continue on that?
Sure.
Okay. You as well? Is everybody okay with that? So if we keep Councillor Boudreau and Councillor Saulnier on that, okay? Then we have, do you need us to make a motion for each of them?
Me as well.
Okay, so can we have a motion to reflect that? So it's moved by Councillor Bourque, seconded by Councillor LeBlanc, that we appoint Councillor Boudreau and Deputy Warden Saulnier on the Mariner Center Nominating Committee. Any questions on that? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Contrary minded, motion carried. Next, we have the Wren Liaison and Oversight Committee. So we need an alternate on that one. And right now we have Councillor Surratt is the representative on that committee, but we do need an alternate member. You would be willing to do that one? Okay, we okay with that? Somebody willing to make a motion that Councillor LeBlanc be the alternate on that committee? Okay, moved by Councillor Madden, seconded by Councillor Foster. Any questions or comments on that? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Contrary minded, motion carried. Then we have REMO. So REMO, we were a little overexcited about that one. We had one councillor too many. So I have to stay on that one. Right now, it's myself and Councillor Digdon and Councillor Surratt. Councillor?
I can remove my name.
Thank you.
And Councillor Digdon was really interested in remaining.
I am, just
Yeah.
because of like,
Your
you know,
background.
the background and
Yeah.
that, you know, but thank you.
You can continue, and I'll remove my name.
Okay.
Thank you, thank you.
So we will remain myself and Councillor Digdon on that committee. Somebody willing to make that motion? Moved by Councillor LeBlanc, seconded by Councillor Bourque. Questions or comments on that? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Contrary minded, motion carried. Number 9, we have 7-day notice. There will be a meeting, Deputy Warden Saulnier, go ahead.
Thank you, Warden. These changes are going to be listed on our committee reports, correct? Like, and be sent to us.
On the list.
Yes, everybody will, I'll just speak in this one. Everybody will get a list of the reports, and we'll also be, making sure that every lead for the committees, because some of the committees are not led by us, right? So that they understand who the new people are, et cetera, and you'll get into the groove once you get, some of you haven't met yet on some of those meetings. Once you get going, you'll then have a list of committees that you'll have, and you'll be reporting on them on a monthly basis.
Right. It's handy to have. You can photocopy, and you have the list of everybody.
Correct. Yeah, you got it.
Thank you. Okay, 7-day notice, there's nothing for now. Number 10, for decision and discussion. So 10A, Yarmouth Mariners Hockey Club Joint Sponsorship Request. There is an attachment there with a proposal of, they're looking basically to have the 3 units work together to have a joint partnership, sponsorship for the Mariners Center Hockey Club. This is not a decision that we would make tonight to say, yep, we want to do this or not. It's more of a decision around meeting with our partners to determine whether or not it's something we all 3 want to get on board and do. So but the information does indicate a financial request or need. So the Diamond Plus sponsorship would be at the cost of $35,000. So that would be shared between the 3 units. So there's things that we would have to talk about, whether it would be, is it a third, a third, a third? How would that be shared? Do we want to do that? So we do really need to have a meeting with our partners to be able to determine that. So tonight, it's not about saying, yes, we're in. Tonight, it's about saying, let's make a motion to have a meeting with our partners. Any questions? Anybody willing to make a motion to that effect? Okay, so moved by Councillor LeBlanc, seconded by Deputy Warden Saulnier. Questions or comments on that? Okay, seeing none. All those in favor, sorry, Councillor Madden?
I've looked at this, and to me, maybe I'm wrong, but I feel like we're supporting a business. And if I'm wrong, that's fine. But I don't think I could support this. We're looking at 25 games that they're going to put up there. That's at $466 per game that we're paying for advertising. They're playing for 7 months, not a year, so will we get the advertising? To me, I don't think it's right. Also, every game, there's the same fans, so we're reaching 1,000 people to $1,200, $1,300 every game. I don't see a benefit for us in this. I think we can spend that money in our community a lot more smarter, if I must. So to me, I don't think I could support this, but just put it out there for discussion.
Okay, thank you. Councillor LeBlanc?
Thank you. Just in reference to Councillor Mann's, and I do know this, the Yarmouth Mariners are no longer a business, they're actually an association now, and so that is why that they are able to go and, I guess, look at this type of fundraising or sponsorships, and so be it. I do agree with the fact of the amount of money of the sponsorship, and that it does appear to be a sizable amount. However, I think looking at it on the other side as well, is that we're in the process of building a $42 million expansion on the Mariners Center. And the Mariners Hockey Club is that anchor to the Mariners Center itself, that draws the people into town, that draws the people to the restaurants, that draws the people when there is a game on. I know you say it's the same people that go every night. I do disagree with that somewhat. You have your regular season ticket holders, but those regular season ticket holders are actually only a very small portion of the attendance that goes. A lot of those, there's a good portion that are corporate seats that are given out to individuals, different people to go to the games and that. So I'm not here to say whether I support it or don't support it right now. I don't know. I just wanted to clarify that. I do think it is certainly worth discussion and taking it forward, and to see what our partners have to say about that as well.
Okay, thank you. So any other questions or comments on that? The motion on the floor is, at this point, is to have a meeting with our partners to discuss whether or not it would be something that we are interested in pursuing. It's not about choosing to be a joint partnership here or whatever yet. CEO Muse?
On the motion, it may be important for council to establish whom would be meeting with the region. I mean, we can't meet all of council. I think that would be impractical. It may require more than what might be typical, right? It may be, typically it might be the CAO and the warden. Maybe it's more than that. I'm just putting it out there. In the motion, you may want to clarify that piece so that all of council can feel represented in that conversation. And of course, no decision will be made there. No decision can be made there. It has to come back to this council either way.
Okay. So, okay, go ahead, Councillor LeBlanc.
Yep, I agree with that, and I would be willing to change that motion to have the CAO and the warden actually attend and represent the council during negotiations.
Okay, and who seconded that? Was it? Are you okay with that amendment?
Yeah.
Okay. So that would require, one last thing, that would, because I would want to know how council feels. Do you know what I mean, going into that meeting? I don't want to go in blind. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, so,
Go ahead.
yeah, agreed. I don't think this is necessarily the venue for that, but I think we need to
No.
have a discussion with this council before we
Yes.
have that meeting.
For sure.
Because we need to understand what council's thinking on this one. I will make another point here, is that we, as an owner of the Mariner Center, we provide the contract between the Mariner Center indirectly, the Mariner Center and the Junior A nonprofit organization. So if sponsorship is not the right answer, we are already implicated via contract. They're contracting rental services from the Mariner Center. So this request came very, very, pretty much at the same time as they were negotiating their contract with the Mariner Center. So it may even be information that we have to go back to them about, because perhaps their request since the negotiation continued is different. Because
Okay.
this is a big ask. Whether we think about 10% or 30%, it's a big number.
Right.
So, yeah, so I just want to make that point clear, because the contract is with Mariner Center, and that contract is something that they only have a one-year contract, so it would have to be renewed next year. So again, that could factor into that decision.
Okay.
Don't want to make it more complicated, but I think I just did.
Okay. Deputy Warden?
Thank you, Warden. I think the points made here are excellent, they're very good, and I think we should not go into this without having some thoughts and some get together and get our heads together and see what's going on. Just to make sure that everything's up and up. It should be clear as crystal, and that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Good.
Would I'd like to hear the motion again?
Yes. So the motion is to have a joint meeting with our partners. So it would be myself and the CAO just to have a discussion around the possibility of the sponsorship for the Mariners Center, the Mariners team, club. We're making it way more complicated, but that's basically what it is. Okay?
And embedded in that is that we would get advice from council. That's not in the
Before.
motion, but it would be understood that we would not meet with them without talking to council.
Right. Okay? Yeah? Okay. Are we good? Any other questions or comments? Okay, seeing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Contrary minded? Motion carried. Next, 10B, request for crosswalk signage, Wedgeport School. So Councillor Boudreau is going to give us a little presentation, talk to us about this issue.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So first of all, before I start, apparently it's official that the Wedgeport School is going to open January 3rd.
Excited.
So that's very good.
Very
Good to hear. Tonight, what I'm looking for is, with council's approval, is to write a request letter from the municipality to the Department of Transportation to investigate what form of equipment is required for this crosswalk. There's a crosswalk that, at the Woodsport School, that a lot of times we're getting close calls with pedestrians, involving pedestrians and vehicles. For example, one of them, there was two vehicles traveling on Route 334. The first vehicle stopped for the pedestrians. The second vehicle swerved past the vehicle that was stopped and drove right by. So very, very close call. So what I'm asking is, again, a request letter for this crosswalk What this letter will do is give permission for DOT to send a district traffic authority to investigate, and they will determine what will work best for this site. Once they have their findings, I will once again bring it to council for funding. And what I'm looking for is a flashing, solar-powered sign that you can press a button and the sign starts to flash.
Okay.
That's it.
Do you want to make that motion?
I'd like to make that motion, yes.
So the motion that, there's a suggested motion to request the Department of Transportation and Infrastructure Renewal conduct a study to assess appropriate safety measures for the crosswalk in Wedgeport.
Yes.
Is there a seconder on that motion? Seconded by Councillor Surratt. Any discussion on that motion? Councillor Digdon.
Thank you. I know approximately 7 years ago, we tried to get a crosswalk and some lighting put in down in West Pubnico at that school. And then the DOT came back and said, no, they didn't feel as though there was a need for one. By all means, I hope it does work. I hope they do feel as though it is in a hard spot coming down over that hill there, you know, and that, so I hope they do go along with it. And having said that, though, and it's just an education portion of it, I believe, that whoever's using that crosswalk, if the lights are put in, and that these people will have to realize that just because the lights are flashing, it does not give them carte blanche to walk across the road.
That's right.
And that, you know, a lot of people, I've almost hit people in Halifax, there's no saying I haven't myself, and that the light's on and they don't look, they're straight ahead. And, you know, the light comes on fairly quick sometimes, and if you're there, it's dangerous. So it can be, you know, a double-edged sword, but I hope they listen to what you're asking.
Yeah, because I mean, the school now is only about 100 yards from the road.
I know
And
it.
it's going to be very dangerous.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
And coming down over that hill
Yeah.
there, it's a
Yeah.
hard spot.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Thank you. Deputy Warden Saulnier.
Thank you, Warden. I'm in complete support and agreement with your ask, Councillor Boudreau. My question is to you, have you talked to the principal of the school, especially with the new school opening so close to the road? They must be in support of this, but would they put that in writing as well? It would probably help.
I haven't talked to the principal because I wanted to know what steps I have to take to get this ball rolling. And that's what I've done. I've just talked to DOT, Don Houston, and this is what he's told me to do.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments on that? Councillor Madden.
Just maybe ahead of it here, I know that it's a very good point in safety issue, but why would we have to bear the whole cost? Wouldn't the school board want to share in the cost of this and where they are?
I've talked to Colton about provincial funding. There's no provincial funding for this. Probably Alab would be a better fit to answer this question. Your question?
Go ahead, CA.
Yeah, I mean, it's an excellent question, but I think the bottom line, it's kind of like sidewalks. It's seen the same way as it's a municipal responsibility, and the fact that the school is really a trigger point for that doesn't seem to impact the funding. So it would be our responsibility. And it may not be precisely what Councillor Boudreau has suggested. You know, it could be something different. DOT does the study, and then they tell you what your options are. And if you choose to take them, it becomes our responsibility. There's no harm in asking for a little help from the Conseil, but we certainly, noted.
Councillor Digdon.
Thank you. And just a follow-up to what the deputy warden said, I personally feel as though he was definitely on the right track there. I feel as though if we could have a letter from the principal of the school or the school board itself saying this is something that they'd definitely like, you know, us to push forward for them, and just a little more teeth to it, that's all, when you go after the ask. That's all.
Okay.
Yep, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments on that motion? Okay, seeing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Contrary minded, motion carried. Thank you. Thank you. Next, we have C, our capital investment plan. So we have 4 attachments on the capital investment plan. There's a lot of information there, and I'm sure that especially some of the new counselors have some questions. I had some questions. There's always questions about the plan, but ultimately, we can talk questions, but ultimately, we're looking to approve this plan. We're looking to make a motion to approve the plan. CEO Muse, do you want to say a little more, a little less more?
A little less more is a good way to describe it. I'm not going to get into the details of this. You've had this for quite some time. I will say a couple things. The one that matters is the first year. If I went back to the capital investment plan from last year and compared it to what we have this year, many of those projects don't look the same because they depend on a variety of things, number one. Number two, it does not in any way commit you to these projects, right? This is a provincial document that requires you to show over 5 years that you've thought about your capital plan, right? That's really what their objective is. There's no going back and saying, oh, you said in year 3 you were going to do this, you better. The only real requirement there is that first year, which the first year is matching your budget that you passed, I guess most of you passed in May of this year. So some of these numbers might be scary to you. I want to just reiterate that many of the projects that are listed here are paid for by a variety of different sources. So I want to make sure that people have an understanding. You know, when you see Mariner Center expansion project costs 40.6 million, well, that makes you swallow hard. But then when you realize that, 20 of it is somebody else, or 20, and then another 10 is somebody else, and by the time you're done with it, it's a $3 million investment which you had committed to a while back. So the number is big, but the partnership you have to remember there's partnerships here. If there's any questions about a particular project that's on this list, I'd rather not go through. I'd rather just address those questions. And I'm just looking at the other attachments to make sure. There's just the 2 last attachments. One is what we call projected equity. It's basically if these projects went precisely the way that we're expecting or projecting in our 5-year capital investment plan, which they won't, but if they did, you would be left with the reserve balances at the bottom of that page. So 2.35 million for capital, 443,000 for gas tax, or now called CCBF, for a total of 2.793. So you'd be investing a lot of money, but you'd be investing your money, other people's money, and other people's money. And also every year we are contributing from the operating fund to the capital reserve to replenish for future projects. And so that's showing you that there's still money in your reserves at the end of those years. In light of the conversation on priorities earlier, many of these projects, I think, could invariably change, but not year 1. Year 1 is already locked in. Lastly, you will see on attachment 4, there is what I call the master list. Again, this is something we have to go over in 2025 to make sure that they reflect what you would like to see. This is basically a very simplistic form that has ranked projects based on a variety of factors. The factors are not showing here because it would just make it way too busy. But you do see that there are points allocated in one of the columns for each of those projects. So presumably, the higher the points, the more important that project is to you. And you'll notice that all of those that are blue, they're included in your 5-year plan. Whether they don't necessarily happen exactly the way that you have it planned, but this is just to illustrate the fact that we used your master list as a reference point to produce the 5-year projection. So that's all I would say about that. I'm sure if there are questions, I'll address them. The requirement to do, again, the requirement to do that plan is a provincial requirement, and we must pass it every year.
Thank you. Counselor Surratt?
Yeah, I know from the last meeting, the CCBF, the gas tax funds, we received notice that we're going to be getting more. There's a mention throughout the original document around third-party funding. Is the CCBF considered third-party funding?
No, the third-party funding is typically showing either user fees that are charged on a project, or it would be other municipal monies. So when you might see third-party funding under the Mariner Center expansion, that would be fundraising as well as municipal funding. So they've all been grouped in that section. The problem that I have is I go back and forth between gas tax and CCBF. So us oldies still call it gas tax, but the newbies might call it CCBF. So if you see gas tax, that's CCBF. And so if you see it on the list as listed as one or the other, they're the exact same thing, and they would have its own column.
And I have a newbie question. How do items get on the list in the first place? Not on the first year, but like, how does a community or how does a person get their capital project on the list?
Right, there are a lot of ways that projects might get on the list. So it might be community influenced, where communities really want to see something happen. There are instances of that, like the Mariner Center expansion, you could argue is one of those, that the community really wanted to see something different or more. There are projects that are out of necessity. So end of life, the tank at East Pubnico is a perfect illustration of that. If it doesn't work anymore and it's going to provide water to important companies, that's a high priority. And typically those projects get funding rather quickly because there's an urgency factor associated with those. They come from council. So council will identify priorities, such as sidewalk in Plymouth is an example, or sidewalk in Argyle, or I don't want to just say one, right? There, those priorities, the council discussions and debates should bring to bear this list in the best list possible. So you should be influenced by projects that are coming from staff that say you must do this. Because of legislative requirements, there's those things that come into play. So there's all sorts of things that might come in, but the list belongs to you in the end. And it's ultimately one of the things that it's not a newbie question. It's an excellent question, because it's one of the things that we want to be doing early in this stage, so that we make sure that list reflects what we want over the next 5 years, knowing it might change, but at least getting the right priorities.
The other question, more to have it kind of, as for the listeners, what exactly falls into capital?
Okay, great question. For the most part, this list includes things that the nerds call tangible capital assets. And so that is something that you can touch, feel, that has a life more than a year, typically. Typically has something that is costing more than at least $10,000, maybe $20,000. Some smaller items wouldn't be considered capital because they're just too small to consider in those lists. And typically, it's things that you own. And so there are instances in our capital plan that include contributions to our subsidiary companies. So we don't own it directly, but we would indirectly own those. So Mariner Center is a perfect example. We're not necessarily going to own that. We may not own some of those assets in the Mariner Center. In this case, we would own that building. In other cases, we may not. And in the cases where we don't, it's usually owned by a subsidiary company that we share. So in the end, when all the consolidation happens, it shows on our statements as that we own 30% of it, for instance. It typically does not include things like, like software, like things that are intangible, that don't, we might use money in the capital reserve to spend in that way, but we don't consider those necessarily as tangible capital. That being said, there are items on the list where I would say they might be projects that we're potentially helping on. Not necessarily something we're going to do anytime soon, but there may be some of those projects that are on that list that we would have to revisit to make sure they should or should not be on that list.
Good?
She has another one.
Sure. Yes?
So, I mean, hearing plainly what you're describing as capital, so services that an organization may provide or whatever would obviously not fit here?
Not, the services themselves, I would say they're more operational, though the service itself may require a capital contribution in order to be of service, if that makes any sense. We haven't included things like we've contributed to community halls over the past, I don't know how many years, forever. And they're not included anywhere on this list. But we have what we call an operational plan that gives, between $10,000 and $15,000 to 2 or 3 community halls per year until all community halls get that money. And we've taken turns. There's a cycle there where each of them that are operational end up getting a pretty significant grant. That, to them, is capital, most likely. Mm-hmm. But to us, it's a contribution to a nonprofit organization, so we wouldn't count that in that equation.
Okay. Counselor Digdon.
Thank you. You definitely have, as a municipality, you have to have priorities. And I know these priorities, I've seen them change over the years. The one that kind of sticks out that I'd want some more information before getting right into it would be the community solar program. I just feel as though we'd be putting a lot of money out, and I know it talks about annual dividends, and that actually talks about actual profits may differ from expected. So I just want to make sure before we put that much money out and that go in, with other municipalities, that we definitely be getting a return. That would be a significant return, hopefully, for the amount of money we're putting in for the Municipality of Argyle.
Would you like me to address that?
Yes, please.
That's an excellent question. I mean, it's one of the biggest ones on the list. And we are set to have a report from the applicant, or the area is the company. They're set to produce a report to talk about those very things. We've committed to an application a while ago, and that has altered somewhat because it's now Shelburne Municipality, ourselves, and the County of Lunenburg that are the 3 parties to this agreement. And it's a big one, and we need to get council up to speed as to what's going on. Because while it doesn't really involve our money directly, we're not investing directly, we're going to be, if it all goes as planned, we would be part of an inter-municipal corporation, of which that corporation would borrow the money and invest in a solar project. Our percentage of that would be 25%. We'd be 25% owners of it. But there's a lot of questions still that need to be answered. There's no application that's gone in yet. Our commitment is to bring that information to you in January. We don't have that information today. For the purpose of the CIP, it's not a risk because you're not committing to the project. But it's a big commitment that it's gonna require a lot more discussion than what we're going to have on the CIP here today. And so we're committed on doing that in January with the team of area.
Thank you. Are there any other questions on the capital investment plan? Is somebody willing to make a motion to move the 5-year plan? It's moved by Councillor Bork. Do we have a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Digdon. We've had a lot of discussion. Anything else? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Contrary minded. Motion carried. I'm losing my voice.
Thank you.
Next, we have 10D, Request for Bylaw 28 Exemption, East Kentville Meeting House Society. So there are 3 attachments. So basically, what they're asking for is when there is a nonprofit organization, they can have their taxes exempt. So they acquired, basically, they have a property, but acquired it, and it is a nonprofit organization. Due to the timing of when they acquired it, they had to pay the taxes on it, but now they're requesting an exemption of taxes, and it does fit within the policy. But they're also requesting that we also kind of repay them back for the taxes that they paid. I'm losing my voice. I don't know what's going on right now, but, oh, okay, good. So, with the three attachments, the first one is the explanation as to what, what they're looking for. And then we have, I thought you were gonna, water. Then we have attachment 2, which is the request for proposal. And attachment 3, oh my goodness, which is the actual bylaw. So we are looking for, thank you, there's two separate motions. There's one for us to add the East Campville Meeting House Society to our list of nonprofit organizations. And the other motion we're looking for is to move that the 2024 taxes of $578.02 plus the applicable interest be written off by council and repaid to the society. Okay, for the first motion, moved by Councillor Dignan, seconded by Councillor Madden. Questions or comments on that motion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Contrary minded, motion carried. So the second motion is that their taxes of $578.02 plus the interest be written off and repaid to the society. So that's moved by Councillor Surratt. Do we have a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Digdon. Any questions or comments on that? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Contrary minded, motion carried. Oh no, what's going on? Weird. All right. Next, we have 10E, relief of taxes request. So this was something that came up on our last agenda. We had a little bit of a conversation around it. Sometimes we have issues that arise that we have requests to have taxes written off. And we have 4 different assessments that were retired by the Land Registry. So it is a request for relief of the amount of $62.24. Is somebody willing to make a motion for that? Moved by Councillor LeBlanc, seconded by Councillor Foster. Questions on that motion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Contrary minded, motion carried. 10F. I'm not contagious, by the way.
You don't sound
It
contagious
sounds
at all.
bad, but it's not. I'm good now. It's just weird. I had COVID, it's gone, it's been a while. So next on our agenda, we have Coastal Protection Act. So Councillor Darrell LeBlanc, would you like to speak to that one, please?
Thank you, Warden Albright. I'm probably going to be a little bit of time here talking, so you can take a break now.
Perfect.
Thank you all. Before I start, in regards to this, I just want to indicate that I am certainly no expert in regards to this, of what we're going to be talking about. I was actually really just introduced to this over the last few weeks, and I've did a little bit of research. And so with that, I guess I will start in regards to the presentation. Last month, I was very fortunate enough to attend the Nova Scotia Federation of Municipalities Conference in Halifax. One of the topics, I guess, that came up there was in regards to this coastal land use. And it seemed to have been quite, I guess, an engaged conference or meeting in regards to that. First, I guess I'm going to take a step back, and I guess we'll give, I guess, a little bit of background in regards to the Coastal Protection Act. So Coastal Protection Act was a law that was passed by the provincial government in 2019. Its main intention was to protect the province's coast from climate change and development that harms the environment. The purpose was intended to, 1, protect coastal ecosystems, prevent inappropriate coastal development, make our coastlines more resilient to climate change, and identify areas at risk from coastal flooding, erosion, storm surges, and sea level rises. In 2021, the Municipality of Argyle did send correspondence to the Honorable Tim Hallman, Minister of Environment and Climate Change, expressing their concerns along with the suggested course of action. And I have it, there is an attachment there for you to see that. To highlight the concerns were the availability and cost of designated professionals required to assess new construction within the zone. On February 26th of this year, Coastal Protection Act was shelved by the current provincial government in favor of the future of Nova Scotia coastlines. The main concept of this plan is that municipalities are the level of government that are best equipped to deal with this, as they are the ones that are responsible for land use planning, zoning, building permits, and bylaws. Under the Province of Nova Scotia government website on climate change, there is a section which outlines all of our roles. These include property owners' decisions of where and how they want to build and adapt. Municipalities help create climate resilient communities by considering climate change in their approach to zoning, land use planning, bylaws, and the criteria they use to issue building permits. Professionals, architects, engineers, contractors, real estate agents, insurance companies, and that's to make sure the standard is met. And provincial government sets the building codes and standards and provides climate change impact information and advice. Back to present, I guess. At the conference, the presentation was done by Gordon Smith, who is the Coastal Land Use Planning Coordinator with the Nova Scotia Federation of Municipalities. The main function of this role is to assist municipalities to effectively implement policies and bylaws related to coastal land use. This includes identifying required resources and advocating for them, connecting municipalities with available support, and facilitating capacity building at the local level. Part of his presentation, it did indicate what municipalities are facing significant challenges with the burden of being put on them to oversee this. Some of the challenges that municipalities are facing are lack of financial capacity to construct the size of projects required, municipal elected capacity, municipal staff capacity, engineers, surveyors, and contractors, strong desire for coordination from the province, consistent approach among municipalities, the question of how do we deal with erosion, and public awareness. So during and after, there was some pretty heated discussion from municipalities in regards to this. There is a significant amount of municipalities out there who feel that the provincial government should be taking this back on. They do not feel that they have the expertise or the capital or the willingness to really get into this. And what their concern is that at some point they could be mandated by the province down the road. So from the feedback that I had received and from the discussion and from what I had heard there, the four things I think that I came away with was, one, municipalities across the province are concerned about the cost of this and the lack of expertise within the municipality, as I mentioned. Future insurance claims also came up against municipalities. And I think that whatever takes place down the road, we have to consider the possibility of insurance claims that could fall against the municipality for us providing, for example, a building permit in a location that could be a flood zone or something to that effect. That is a possibility. If the province does not reverse course on this, municipalities could eventually be mandated by the province if that is the route they choose to go. Not saying they're going to, but that is a concern that did come up. So I think the final thing that I came away with in that regard, more so, is that due to the complexity of this, and with the possibility at some point down the road that it could fall onto municipalities, regardless of what our position is here as a municipality on whether we are for the coastal plan or not, or for parts of it or not. What I do think we should consider is that we are just one small municipality in a local area that we do have partners that have the same type of infrastructure that we have, that have the same type of coastline that we have, that have the same type of industry that's operating out of them. And so if we do get to that point of where we are going to have to look at certain bylaws or changing bylaws, that's where I would certainly make a recommendation that we look at partnering up with our local municipalities, such as Modi or the Municipality of Barrington, the town of Yarmouth, and even the Municipality of Clare and Digby, to look at maybe developing bylaws that are very similar in essence, so that if it does come to that point. Since I did put this out, we did receive an email back on some questions, which is, we added an attachment last night. I don't know if anybody had the chance to see that or not, but there is an attachment 5, which is the response back from, I'm sorry, I forgot the gentleman's name, from the Federation of Municipalities. Gordon Smith, thank you. And so Gordon, if you look at attachment 5, Gordon has laid out a bunch of things in regards to that. I will indicate that some of this stuff he did lay out as well at the conference, and there was still some, I think, municipalities that maybe just don't feel that they have the trust in the provincial government in regards to what is going to be put on them, and I think that is the biggest concern. So with that, I'm not going to read Gordon's replies there. That is there for you to look at and see. And again, I'm not making any recommendations or indicating anything one way or another. I just thought that this was a really important topic that maybe should be brought back to council to, I guess, look at this information and what's taking place out there, and then go from there.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Deputy Warden Saunier.
Thank you, Warden. Councillor LeBlanc, I've read some of your comments and some of your concerns, and I agree with every one of them. And I said, I've done a lot of research on this in the past, and of course, I've read the material that you've brought back, and I still said that the title is a little misleading, because when you look at your attachment 5 here, they're basically, what the gentleman is saying, is making our communities aware of flooding. They're not talking about repairing our coast. And our coast, as much as it's all our coastal municipalities in Nova Scotia, I think there's 49, we're all coastal, but yet we're different, and especially Argyle. We have well over 500 kilometers of coastline, which is, I'm sure, much more than any other district. So, you know, for us to tackle this by ourselves, and it would be a lot more work for Argyle, considering, let's say, Cape Breton, where they have highlands and coastal protection is not even an issue. You know, very little of an issue, I should say. So this policy or this new thing is not really protecting the coast. It's trying to protect its future infrastructure, it seems, because existing infrastructure is grandfathered in there, it's going to stay. And I share your concern about the implications of insurance coming after the municipality if we deem a piece of property safe and it's not. There's a lot here, and I am not comfortable at all with it. However, it is not. I make myself clear. What I've read here is not protecting the coast. It's just protecting or trying to protect infrastructure. I don't know from what sometimes, if it's from insurance companies or I am not sure, but I am not convinced. I need more material. I guess that's it. Thank you.
Councillor Surratt.
Just a question. I saw that we had, the former Warden Muse had sent a letter, I believe in 2021. Did we not receive any response from that letter?
Yeah,
We did.
was actually, if you look at attachment.
Go ahead.
Oh, I believe it's attachment 3 or attachment 4. Attachment 3 is the letter that was sent. Attachment 4 is actually the response.
We got it, and thank you, was the response.
But their response really was that all they received was that they received the letter and thank you, and they'll bring our concerns forward. But I don't believe that there was any other response that ever came back in regards to that.
I also went back, sorry.
Nope, that's okay.
I also went back and did look into, you had provided an attachment to the government site where you could go and you could see the bullets and the list, which is similar to the comments that you made in your letter. And so from the bullets, you can't really tell what is deeming municipal and what is deeming provincial, because it will say municipal, similar again to what you said. This is municipal, they're in their, land use planning and whatever, and then there's a bullet around architects and engineers that's kind of free-floating without any responsibility, and then there's a provincial responsibility. And so how do we know that the provincial government is intending that we hire the engineers and we hire all of these specialists to make sure? That's one question. My other question is, and it might be more to Alain, would be, how does it happen now? So, we provide building permits now. Who makes that assessment on whether there's concerns regarding erosion or flooding or other pieces that might be a concern?
So to answer your first question, honestly, I don't know. It's what I am assuming, though, however, is that the provincial government does have the authority to either approve it or deal with it or to pass it down. Whether the current government is for this, against this, prefer not to have it, I don't have that answer. And as I stated, I'm certainly not an expert in it, and I really don't know what they're looking at or thinking. I guess looking at this, all I can really indicate is that there seems to be a lot of concern from municipalities in regards to it. And I think that's the main thing to take away from.
Go ahead. CO Muse.
I'll try to answer the second part as accurately as possible, knowing that I'm not a building inspector or a planner. I would say that the regulations aren't specific to erosion or those types of things. What the land use bylaw has attempted to address is to pre-establish floodplains. There are some areas that would, if you were looking to construct in a floodplain, would warn you as part of the land use bylaw. Is it a complete list? Well, probably not, because that's a moving target, and places that flood can differ. I'd say that the building code itself may have regulations in there that talk about certain aspects that the Coastal Protection Act would have sought to look into, but I'm not aware of anything that would say. It's very much related to the building itself. Last part I would say is there are regulations about the distance that you can construct. So there are, distances to your boundaries, distances to your neighbors. There are differing rules depending on where this is happening. But to say that they relate specifically to erosion or climate change, I'd have to say that they don't.
Thank you. So this did come up. We've had, those of us who were sitting around the table in the past, this came up for us as part of our conversations, and how do we address this? Because we thought that the province was going to address this, and then we realized that they wanted us to address it. So when we talked about our land use bylaw, this did come up. And as council, we sat around, and it was really difficult to make those decisions around what's the right distance, what's the right call. So, and I think that what happened is other municipalities were kind of in the same boat and saying, we're not experts in this, and this is not our field. So I thank you for providing the information from NSFM. It was very thorough. It was very well explained. And I think that what we're seeing now is more and more municipalities are saying, look, it's a lot for us to handle as municipal units. And with all the different municipalities, everybody's coastline is different. And we could have different regulations all over the place. So I think what's come of all of that is that we need something more uniform. and how do we address this? Because it is important. The Coastal Protection Act is very important. I mean, we all know it, right? We all know that climate change is happening, erosion is happening. We need something in place, but it's how do we do this right? And in a world of liability, it is a scary thought as well. You, CAO Muse?
So I just want to be very clear about this, and the lawyer's present, so I'm hoping he's not going to disagree with me, but there's no legal obligation today for the municipality to do this. Like, there's no legal obligation to say you cannot, or you must, or you mustn't. The issue with where we are now is we know that the coast is eroding. We know of certain things, and I think it's a responsible thing for government to consider what kind of impact that might have when you're doling out permits. So today, I mean, the permit can't say that it knows anything about erosion. Like, we don't know anything about it.
Right.
Like, so, I mean, do we put a disclaimer on the bottom of each of these things that this may or may not be eroded? We don't know. Like, so, and there's other aspects associated with this. I'm assuming there's insurance ramifications, and I'm assuming there are mortgage ramifications to all these things. Like, do insurance companies want to cover something
Right.
that's right on the water, or these things are going to start to come up. So, it all comes, like, the irony is that when the province said that they were going to do it, we said we didn't like the way you were going to do it. And so they said, well, okay, you do it. And we don't like that either. We like that even worse, because we don't have the expertise. I mean, our problem with it was that we didn't, at the time, was that we didn't have experts. They were saying you should do this, this, this. And I'm like, well, who's going to do that? And that was our issue as a council. And now it's like, well, okay, you guys do it. It was like, well, no, we were hoping you would do it the first time. And the other thing, the Coastal Protection Act, Coastal Protection Act isn't about the water more than it is about the coast. It's about protecting the coast from damage and from making decisions from the land. It's not necessarily things about the water. I mean, the water is completely outside of our jurisdiction, so it wouldn't be downloaded to us because we don't have that jurisdiction. So this really is about, because a lot of people confuse coastal protection with things in the water, and that's not what the act was intended to do.
Councillor Digdon?
Thank you. I guess it wasn't really a priority when it was put out in 2019, and here we are 2024, and there's
Right.
been nothing done on it yet. The big thing is, as far as the you do it, I think it's something that's going to have to be done together. And the reason I say that is I feel as though there's going to have to be some municipality input, or municipalities input, because when you're looking at down here, this end of the province, you're looking at some of the highest tides, or the highest tides in the world, the rise and fall. You're looking at the water maybe creeping up more on your land, at a yearly basis than what it may be down Cape Breton. Having said that, down Cape Breton, you're looking at some of your bigger storms that you get. And that, so I don't think it's going to be a one-size-fit-all plan that's going to work for everyone. Can we do it? No, we can't do it. It's like that 5-year plan. We're going to be sitting around here, if any one of us are still around here in 5 years' time, and we're still not going to have anything done, folks. We don't have the expertise to do it. We don't have the resources to do it. And where do we start to come up with a plan that's going to be fair for everyone? Can we do it together? I think we may be able to do it together. We have representatives on NSFM from all areas of Nova Scotia. And, maybe they can work with the provincial government. Having said that, with the provincial government taking the lead, because I honestly don't feel as though it should be money, to come out of municipalities, or a lot of money to come out of municipalities to come up with this plan. It was something that was initiated by the provincial governments, and, yes, we can work with them by all means, we can have input on it, but as far as it costing the municipality of Argyle or its residents a lot of money, I don't think we should get into that, really.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
I'm glad you mentioned the water, CAO Muse, because you said like the water is not our jurisdiction at all. So does this, I guess I'd like you to explain, does this have any impact whatsoever on the ADA, on aquaculture development? Like, are there any effects whatsoever?
No. I mean, there are, I mean, because ADA relates to oyster and oyster development, I suppose that some may look at the historical use of oysters and how oysters actually reduce erosion. So there's a $1 million project in New York as an example, as an illustration of how they're rebuilding some of the coastline. So again, no, it wouldn't have an impact. It wouldn't have any impact on any development in the water, as far as I'm concerned. If there's environmental conservation areas, I can't see that being impacted at all. Can't see lobster fishing being impacted unless, of course, it related to erosion as it related to the wharf. Like, it really wouldn't have any direct impact at all.
Okay, I was just looking for clarity.
Yep.
Deputy Warden, Sonia.
I can, thank you. I can kind of add to that because I don't know if everybody here remembers Groundhog Day, but that was a storm and we had a huge tidal surge. And that can certainly happen again. And with these king tides and the way things are going, if it did, I think it would be a lot worse. However, at those times, we actually were able to really see where our low-lying areas were. And especially the wharfs, most of them were on the water. A lot of boats got damaged. A lot of infrastructure got damaged. I remember a place in Tuscot where the woodpile went down the river. And it hasn't happened since, but it can happen again. And most of the roads were flooded where they're low. And this particular document talks about evacuation plan, not necessarily fixing these low roads or low. And it talks about a hazard map to make people aware of where the coastals are. So I look at this policy and looking at it more of an awareness than a fix. Because if you need to fix all the low-lying roads and government infrastructure around here, to Councillor Digdon's point, we can't do it alone, that's for sure. Thank you.
Thank you. So are there any other comments, questions? What would council like to do with this one? Councillor Surratt, go ahead.
That was actually going to be my question. I was just,
Where do we do?
I see the list of things that is suggested around the hazard maps and signage and all those things. And knowing that we've sent a letter in 2021 that had a dismissive response, maybe. Does it make sense to send another letter now that the new government has established? And perhaps I haven't heard exactly who is the new minister, but, excuse me? Same ministers come in? Okay. Yeah, does it make sense for us to send a letter, or does it make sense for us to understand and see? I mean, you did suggest creating a bylaw or a policy around specifically this. I'm just kind of looking to understand what you feel from your experience having been at NSFM and all of this information would be a great next step for us.
Councillor LeBlanc?
Yep. Just to, I guess, to correct or whatever, I did recommend in regards to doing bylaws, what I indicated was that if we do get to the point of where something has to be done, and this is falling on our shoulders or onto the municipality's shoulders, that when we start putting bylaws in place regarding this, that we should work with our other municipalities in that regard. What to do with this right now? I'm not sure there's really anything we need to do right now or that we can do right now. Again, outside of if we send a letter to the minister just asking for updates or what their thoughts are or indicating that we still feel, as in before, that it should be this should fall under a provincial jurisdiction, then that's fine. I think the main purpose of me bringing this here tonight was, again, just where I guess the last correspondence was from a while ago and where this still seems to be a heated topic. I just wanted to bring council up to date of sort of what's still taking place out there in that regard.
On our decision. Did you want to speak?
Thing I was going to say, I feel as though right now we're going to be at a wait and see approach. It's like I'd read some words that was penned earlier this week from someone that said, we'll go quicker alone but farther together. And I don't think here that this is anything that we have to go quick on. We can't go quick on. It has to be done right, and we have to go farther. We have to go with all of Nova Scotia, as far as I'm concerned, if it's going to work and work well and be fair to everyone involved.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Bork.
Okay, so for moving on, should we reach out to NSFM again? And ask that all the municipalities are represented by them, right? So does NSFM represent us and send a letter to the province and say, listen, we can't do this alone? Like Glenn had said, let's work together and let's see what we can do with this. I mean, you're not gonna sit here and wait till something does happen. Erosion is happening, as everybody is saying, and you don't wait till something happens. Let's do it now. So maybe I'm pushing it a little further, but I think that's, to me, I would get NSFM to send a letter to the province.
Are you making
And
that a
they-
motion?
Yes.
Do we have a seconder to that motion? Seconded by Councillor Digdon. Okay. Any other questions or comments on that? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Contrary minded, motion carried. Thank you. Next, we have 10G, Offshore Wind Farm Report, Municipal Comments. So there are two attachments. The first attachment is, I believe our CAO has prepared the information here. And then there is also an attachment, hold on. It is a response letter. So this is a potential response letter that we could send regarding our concerns. So the offshore wind farm, I mean, this is something that's new for us. It's, to be honest, scary for us because we are a fishing community and we know that that is the backbone for us. And we're all worried about this, and we're all worried about how this could impact our backbone. We've talked about this before. I know that our deputy warden has attended some public engagement sessions on this. I guess, do we want to, have you all had the chance to read the response letter, and how does council feel about, how do we want to move forward on this, I guess is what I'm asking. Councillor Boudreau.
My opinion, we should send a letter because first thing, it'll be in our back door, in our backyard. And we should act on it right away.
Okay. So you're making that a motion?
I'd like to make that motion, yes.
Do we have a seconder to that motion? Seconded by Councillor Bork. Other questions or comments on that motion? Deputy Warden Saunier.
Thank you, Warden. I for some reason, I did attend those open house, as you mentioned, and there was very little attendance by the public and especially the fishing community. And I've been trying to tell fishermen that these windmills are coming in. For some reason, I don't know, I don't think they realize that this may be happening now. And, you know, they're looking at, it's only going to happen 10 years from now. And so I'm kind of surprised at that, because it is an important issue, because fishing is the backbone of our community here. And they've established, and I don't know who they are, I don't know if it's the federal or provincial government or who it is, but they've established a buffer zone 25 kilometers from the coast going out, that they can't put any windmills, and they can put windmills outside of that. So for where I come from, fishing starts at 25 kilometers. That's where we start. That's where we make our living. That's where I used to make my living. So anything out there, they have machines now that can float. So the depth of water doesn't matter. It can put there. So I'm scared they're going to be displacing our fishery at some point. And I don't know if there's any compensation. If there was, it'd be great. But it would only be for the ones that are being displaced at the time. It would ruin future fishing.
Exactly.
So it is a huge concern, I think, for this fishing community, not just of Argyle, but of the whole Southwest Nova, and probably the province. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, we have a motion on the floor, seeing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Contrary minded. Motion carried. H, we have pension plan review. Our CAO has, I think it's our CAO that has prepared information on the pension plan for staff. Would you like to give a quick overview?
Yeah,
of that?
very, very quick. Because this relates to staff, it's appropriate that I go through it, I think. Though I will say that the pension plan is available to both staff and council. It's some councilors actually participate in this plan. So our current plan is a 6% match pension plan, which, depending on who you ask, is either really low or extremely generous. The municipal pension plan review is something that I felt was important to support staff, especially when we look at retention and recruitment in the future. Times have changed. We now compete with, because of the complexity of the jobs that we do and what's changed over the last amount of years, we are now competing with provincial staff now. So we're competing with other municipal staff. So when we look at these things, we have to be competitive. And so we've done, I think, a pretty good job. It's taken us a while, but a pretty good job with a lot of other elements of compensation. So the salaries and the salary ranges have been, thoroughly investigated. How do they compare to your neighbors? How do they compare to similarly sized municipalities? And I think we're the ranges are very much there. And so secondly is, okay, well, what else is there? There's vacation, there's sick, there's other benefits, and all those benefits are strong for Argyle, very competitive. I will note that the flex, the 4-day work week, not every municipality participates in that, and so those who do really have stated how important it is because again, the stress of the work, that extra day of defrag has made a tremendous difference to a lot of people, and I'm just repeating what I'm hearing. So what was left really in the whole comprehensive view was the pension plan. So we did an assessment. We have a defined contribution plan. So for the teachers of the world, they'll know what a defined benefit pension plan is, and that's what teachers enjoy. And so that's basically all of the risk is to the employer or to the plan. It's not to the employee. The defined contribution, the one that we have, all the risk lands on the employee, because essentially it's a 6% contribution of their salary to which it's matched, and whatever's there is there. Fill your boots. When you're out, you're out. You're out of fuel. It doesn't get refueled. And we would probably 2 years ago, I never would have considered anything in a defined benefit plan, because no municipalities were doing it. Very few were doing defined benefit. Most of them were bigger municipalities or towns that were doing defined benefit plans, because they had to hold the plan themselves. And without getting into the complexity of that, there are actuarial assumptions that are made that are really contrary to an organization that there's an assumption that it does not last forever. So in an actuarial assessment for the province, the calculations are different. They make estimates based on the useful life of the organization, and the province's useful life is obviously larger than our own. And so, again, that's a little complicated, but all I want to state out of that is that an actuarial value is considerably advantageous with this new plan compared to if you had your own plan as an individual organization. So here we are. So we looked at across the region where we are at, and we are the lowest. We're tied for last place at the 12% maximum. The highest is 18%, which would be, if it was matched equally, would be 9% each. But in that particular instance, the longer you're there, the more the municipality pays. So in some cases, you could get 13% from the municipality, and you would only have to pay 5% as a staff person. That, to me, is far richer than what we would be looking at. And so when we were looking at these percentages, it occurred to me that that two organizations recently moved to what I call the Public Service Superannuation Plan, which is the same plan that the provincial employees enjoy. So the percentages are included in here, and I was very impressed with the cost of it and comparatively the benefit as well. The cost would go from where we are, 6%, to 8.4% of pensionable earnings, and then it would go up to 10.9 after pensionable earnings over 68,500. So that, again, technical, but that's the way that their pension plan works. They can alter those percentages if you're willing to not do the 100% pension. So you can do a 100% pension, you can do an 80% pension, you can do a 60% pension. So all those things are available inside this particular plan. The plan has a lot of benefits, including the fact that the broker is usually paid. So in this case, the broker is a nonprofit organization. They are not paid. So that has a tremendous impact on the growth capacity of the money being set aside. Because again, this is what the province enjoys. It's a provincial service that's now being provided to the municipality. So I have a lot of questions about this plan, and there's a lot of things that I would want to know about it. And I had a lot of questions for the representative, and what he had suggested was, what all the other municipalities did in this case was, if you're considering a change, and this is one of your considerations, hire an actuary, a third-party actuary, to do a comparison between the two plans, bring that report to council, and let council make a decision based on independent, reliable information. I am nowhere near an actuary, and I can tell you they have a very, very specific skill. And so we do have companies that will do this. I did mention the fact that we needed to make a change here in the pension plan because we were tied for last place. And in terms of competitiveness, we felt like we needed to do something different. So I will be recommending a change one way or another. I think that in order to do that properly, we need to understand this particular pension plan a little bit more, which is what the recommendation is to engage the actuary to do that. And then you will have questions, I'm sure, once that comes out, and then we'll go through that process at that time. The only other thing I would say about that particular plan is if we're competing with provincial staff, which we are, in a lot of ways, I see provincial staff coming back to municipalities because they like our work. They like the fact that we can make a bigger difference, that they're less tied to rules and regulations that they don't really understand or appreciate as much as others. And so they might be looking for a change. Well, if we are on the same pension plan as they are, flip, they can come right over. So many times I've seen it go the other way, that municipalities lose good staff to the province because of this, because of that. And so if we could flip the switch, we might actually see people, experts that we need. We just talked about all these complex things. We might need those experts. So this is I think this is a kind of a clever option to do that. So yeah, you didn't tell me to speak short. I guess I should have probably taken that.
Forgot.
Yeah, I only do it if you tell me,
Right.
Madam Chair. So.
Soapbox.
Oh, soapbox. Okay, so that's my cue. So that's really the recommendation, and I would, if there's any other questions or comments, I would invite them. But the suggested motion is included in the report.
So we have Deputy Warden Sonia. Go ahead.
Thank you, Warden Albright. I'll ask questions for you. What drives the percentage? At some point, this must have been acceptable, must have been great. Maybe you were top of the list. So what drives the increase in this percentage?
Are you referring to are you referring to the percentages in the proposed new one? Yeah. So those are calculations that they provide you. So like I said, that assumes a 100% benefit. So what they do is they calculate, they take a variety of things. They say years of service times income for the past 5 years, and they do a mathematical equation. And they say, well, the number should be this. And then so then they say, okay, well, then the actuaries say, well, you're gonna live this long, so you actually need this much money. And then so they go back and they say, okay, this is the percentage that is required in order for us to meet that obligation. And they could be right and they could be wrong.
So it's kind of as your job responsibility grows, your income grows.
Correct.
And so does your pension.
Yes, it would. And so would the contribution from that person. So it isn't just on the municipality, it's a matching situation. So that 8.4 would assume 100% of the value or the benefit of that pension plan. If that was too rich, well, you could go to 80%. That number would go down by 20%, and they would get 80% of that benefit. But your point is correct. The more money everybody makes, the more that they would contribute, and the more the municipality would have to contribute. But that's the same as is in the current plan.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Counselor Surratt?
Yeah, I think it's really important that we remain competitive, and recruitment and retention is huge. We've all met the staff. We all think they're really great, and I think it's really important. I quite like the idea of engaging an actuary and understanding just kind of where the difference is and what it is, and hearing his proposal. I think it's really important.
Thank you. Counselor LeBlanc?
Thank you, Madam Warden. A few things here. I've actually got 3 comments, I guess, in regards to it. One, as we all know, if you want to look at it, what an actual defined pension plan is, your CPP. Anybody that receives CPP, that is a defined pension plan. You contribute a certain amount throughout your life into your CPP, and you've got that defined benefit paying you for the rest of your life. So there's a good example. 2, as somebody that has a pension plan from my other employment that is on the 6 and 6, so I contribute 6 and the company contributes 6. That's very appreciative and it's great, but that does put the pressure on the employee to manage that plan themselves throughout their life. And so I know what I am going to need when I retire, and so I have to manage that plan throughout my life, and at times maybe take riskier decisions in regards to how I'm investing that money or not to try to get to that level of what I'm looking for retirement. So that does add added stress into any employee. The 6 and 6 plan is great for employers. Defined benefit plans, the employers usually try to stay away from them because it does put more risk on them. However, looking at this type of situation of where we're not bearing the risk of us doing the plan ourselves, but this is, that definitely lowers the risk tremendously in that regard. The third point I like to make is, I guess, exactly what Councillor Surratt had to say. The staff is your most important asset that we have. We need to make sure we take care of them. It's a fantastic staff we have here. And again, we need to be competitive out there in the market to make sure that we have the best possible people doing the job that needs to be done. Thank you.
Thank you. Counselor Digdon?
Thank you. And I could be seeing too far into it. I'm all for getting someone in to possibly study the plans. Only thing I'm looking at is this is, although it's for staff, it can flow over to the counselors as well, and possibly lead to a potential monetary gain for the counselors. Not just wondering, it doesn't go near the conflict of interest or anything as far as us voting on this?
That's a good question. I mean, council generally is responsible for deciding its own compensation, and that was established by the Municipal Government Act. So you you have the right to adjust your salaries and/or benefits. We have a policy that kind of makes it easier, I think, on everyone, is that this is how it works. So as opposed to council approving salaries, they're approving a policy that sets how salary gets established, and that really needs to be reviewed from time to time. So the answer to your question is, it would not put you in a conflict because you're specifically allowed to do that under the Act. The second thing I would say about that is, I really don't know what it would look like for council at this time. So the actuary might actually give you that insight. It may be different for council than it would be for staff, and I just don't know the difference today.
No, that's good. Just wanted to make sure that somebody wasn't gonna come up to me tomorrow and, you've done quite a thing there last night there,
Yeah.
so that's all. Yep,
We
thank
can,
you.
we can certainly address that concern with the actuary as part of his or her report.
Thank you.
Councillor Madden?
Thank you, Warden. I guess one of the questions I had is that a new pension or the pension we're looking at is transferable, and our CAO did mention it would be. And I do agree that it would cause the staff to be the retention, the staff. My only question is, as an accountant, have you done any figuring on what current staff, what it would cost the municipality at this moment? I know you can't project it that far, but I'm sure you've sit down and said, okay, right now, this is what it would cost us if we went with this
Yeah.
percentage.
The answer is, I haven't completed that. I do know what it costs today for the pension plan, and I plan as part, if you're interested in going down this route, one of my jobs would be to do precisely what you've suggested, which is to understand what the cost would be, because that will factor into the decision as to whether it's 100%, 80%, or 60%, because those decisions are fiscally based. So I don't have that today. I hope to have it well before any sort of decision would be made, for sure. The other thing I neglected to mention is that there's an existing pension plan here. And so what happens if you transition is that the pension manager determines how many years you can buy with the amount of money you have in the plan. So what would happen is all that would go into the new pension plan, and it would buy years for each individual staff member. How many? Well, that depends. Depends on how long they've been here, depends on how much is there. There's no request for additional money from the municipality to make that happen. It would be monies are already been contributed by both staff and the council or the municipality.
Thank you. So we do have a suggested motion to authorize the CAO to engage a third-party actuarial comparison of our current pension plan with the public sector superannuation plan. Is anybody willing to make that motion? Okay, moved by Deputy Warden Saunier, seconded by Councillor LeBlanc. Any other questions or comments on that? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Contrary minded, motion carried.
Thank you, Council.
Next, we have council approval, funding applications. Is this what you had talked
Yeah,
about?
it's a late
Okay.
item. I can go really
Okay,
fast.
yep, go ahead.
So this, unfortunately, this was a late item because we were putting in applications for funding and the deadlines were coming up, and obviously there's nothing like the last minute to get an application done. Seriously though, what happens when we have applications like this, funding applications from the province, this GRIP will happen every year. It's, can't remember exactly how much it is. I think last year they increased the amount to 50 million from 10 million. But I don't know what the amount will be, but every year they'll have this available, and it's for specific items. So what I do is I take a look at the master list, and I take a look at all the projects that could fit into the criteria of that funding and also be shovel-ready. So these things, they don't get funded unless they're shovel-ready, unless there's some sort of design or pre-design. And they also have to fit the criteria. So of all the projects, the projects that have begun, they don't qualify. So there's actually quite a few projects that have been well underway, so they wouldn't qualify. The GRIP funding supports wastewater improvements for predominantly. It does accessibility and other things, but really where we looked at the list, the one that was of particular concern was a malfunctioning of wastewater in the Tuscan Industrial Park, where there is a significant amount of volume coming out of one business, and they are currently not connected to our wastewater system because we don't want to introduce all that volume of water into the system, because we don't want to compromise the quality to the other residents. So this is a unique situation where an on-site system has been installed and cost shared with that company. The result of which is that it has malfunctioned, or it is in the process of malfunctioning, which causes us environmental concerns. There's environmental measures of the wastewater that measure negative particles in the water, and they are increasing. So we are concerned. So this particular application would support that. I've called it like the Brew project in the master list. It is a municipal project. It is not a business project. I just made that reference because it identified it appropriately. The CBCL was engaged to do a study. The study has been completed, and it indicates a recommended course of action. There are 3 recommended courses of action. That is not attached in your council agenda. I will say that the on-site solution was selected because the same reasons why I said is that we want to protect that volume. The application, or the total project cost, is estimated high. It's estimated at $1.5 million to fix. Wastewater isn't cheap. The purpose of this request is to ask permission for council to apply for this project. And the application may or may not be successful. If it's not successful, we don't do the project. If it is successful, we would get $750,000, or 50% of the project funding. The other 25 and 25 would come from internal sources. 25% of the project would come from CCBF, or gas tax, and the other 25% would come from capital reserves. Is it more than we expected in our master plan? Yes, it is. It is a far larger project than we hoped for or expected. That being said, we're very confident that the number that we're submitting is very protected. When we look at the options, like, some of them are actually quite a bit lower than that number, but we have to estimate the worst case in an application, because you don't go the other way, right? If you ask for not enough, you're not getting it, right? You're not getting more. But if you ask for too much, you can actually return a section of that back if you need to. So this is, it's a tough one in the sense, because it does require a council to approve the application, but part of the application is committing those amount of monies to the project. It's hard for us to recommend against it, because I don't think there's a better option. I mean, we have to deal with this, right? We have to deal with this issue. And we feel like the best opportunity to do that is to do it in this environment where it's funded at 50%. I mean, obviously, I'm here for any questions or comments on this. This was a late ad item, and I apologize for the late ad.
Are there any questions or comments for our CEO? Councillor Foster.
If the on-site disposal system is malfunctioning, where is the wastewater going?
The waste, well, it's currently in, I won't say that it's malfunctioning. I think we're having issues with it. It is an on-site system that is an in-ground system.
Yes.
So the in-ground system, the filtration happens very similarly to your own septic tank.
That's right.
Right? It will have that filtration system in the ground.
That's
So the concern we have is that if it gets worse, then it's not wastewater in the traditional sense of poop. but
Right.
it is a form of wastewater. That being said, it can still be environmentally an issue that we want to address, of course.
Okay,
Yeah.
I have a question. I may be wrong on this point. I was told this by a constituent while I was campaigning, that there's 2 lots that have not yet been sold, and we're not able to sell because of the problem associated with the wastewater. Is that correct?
I would say that we are leaning on the side of caution as a municipality to not be in a situation where we sell a property and then have a problem on those properties.
So it is
there is some
true-
truth to that statement.
There are
yes.
2 properties that cannot be sold because of that risk.
There are 2 properties we choose not to sell.
Okay.
Based on the fact that we don't know what the solution can look like right now. So if the solution required more land or adjacent land, and we had sold it, then we would have shot ourselves in the foot there.
So is the nature of the wastewater associated with the manufacture of the product that is happening at that facility?
Yes, the wastewater would be a byproduct of that process.
Was the disposal of that wastewater foreseen when the building was constructed or when the facility was constructed?
It was. There was an engineered design. An engineer was engaged to design a solution, of which the solution was a cost-shared situation between ourselves and the industry, I guess, for lack of a better term.
Okay,
The failure of that is in no way the fault of the industry.
okay. Just want to make sure I understand the facts
Yeah.
correctly.
Yes, I would say that, yes, those are all, I hope that I answered them.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Councillor Matt?
So from what I understand with sewer system and wastewater, there's environment's always involved. Is environment doing any consultation in this or producing information or?
Environment is and will be advised by our engineers on this particular project. It is in our wastewater district. So because it's in our wastewater district, generally speaking, environment doesn't directly test. They expect us to test and produce it for them. So they've not in any way said, oh, these are too high or these are too low, like, because it's in our wastewater, the obligation to do that is ours. But we do know what the regulations are, and we are concerned that this process is going to result in a negative outcome. So we're trying to get ahead of it.
So what is the wish of council on this one? Councillor Digdon?
Thank you. I honestly feel as though we've been talking about this for quite a while there now, years. I feel as though for this business to have some stability, they're going to have to know that we're putting a concerted effort in towards, helping them stay. And I know it's a lot of money, but at the same time, I don't know what, we tried the engineer's way of it working. I guess it didn't work that good. I don't know what else we do, really. There may be some, what our CAO tends to call sometimes some free money out there. So it's better to get some free money along with our money.
Right.
And that than, trying to correct all this problem on our own. So I would definitely make the motion to move to endorse the GRIP application
Thank you.
and go from there.
Do we have a seconder? Okay. Seconded by Councillor Bork. Any more questions or comments on that? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Contrary minded, motion carried. Next, J, we have notice of approval of a policy. So new Article C54, trail packet in, packet out. There is an attachment. It's basically, if you're using the trails and you're bringing whatever you're bringing, bring it back out with you rather than, because if anybody does walk on the trails, that's one thing that I do notice there's a lot of garbage on the trails. So what do you need from us, CAO, for this? This is just like our notice for this one.
It has received notice, so therefore, if you're happy, you can make the motion to approve this policy.
Okay. Anybody willing to make that motion? Go ahead, Councillor Surratt.
I was just curious in terms of, I love the motion, and I agree. When I walk on the trails, there's a lot of trash. How are people held accountable
The police
to
and
the
the
policy?
Yeah.
Yeah. Who's gonna walk behind them with their bag and say, pick it up?
Go ahead.
Okay, that was the very question I asked to Recreation as, what happens if this happens? So we do, this policy doesn't address enforcement. There are others around illegal dumping that do. So I think what we would do in these cases is that we would report that kind of, if it's a bag of chips, I think we probably just pick it up. But if it was, a significant and continuous, that waste check would be involved. And they have bylaws and enforcement that we've given them that they can follow through. It's just like anything else, though. If there's no personalized information, they may not be able to catch the person. But the answer is there's no real enforcement on this policy. It's more educational and instructional.
Thank you. Councillor Digdon.
Thank you, and that's exactly what I was thinking when I was reading over this policy earlier. We've got no way, we're making this policy, but we've got no way to measure if it's actually working or not, and we've got no way to enforce if it's not working. It's great. I guess it's a statement more than anything else. I hope people, listen to it, but I'm afraid because it's too bad people have to be told if you take it in, take it out. That's all.
Yeah.
Yep. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor LeBlanc.
Thank you. I agree with Councillor Digdon. One thing I will indicate, though, is that what I see of this policy is I see this more as an education policy, and it's to get the word out there, and especially part 4 of that where signage should be placed on trails.
agree.
So what I'm looking at is signage at those trails with this policy or the take it in, take it out. And hopefully that'll grow enough awareness from people to make them think, and that when they do go in with something, to bring it back out.
Thank you. Is anybody willing to make a motion to approve this policy? Okay, moved by Councillor Surratt, seconded by Councillor Bork. Any other questions or comments on it? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Contrary minded, motion carried. 11, we have correspondence and for information. So we have there are two pieces there. There's the AMAN's to Department of Justice FOIPOP Act review, and then the original FOIPOP presentation from the province of Nova Scotia. So they're looking at making some changes to the FOIPOP Act, consolidating some things. There are a few attachments involved for your information. There are comments from NSFM, some of the concerns that are raised. Time is one. Size of different municipalities depends on, how do we handle. And we as a municipality, we've been dealing with FOIPOP over the last little bit, and it's not something that we were used to. And I just think of the amount of time that we have put in, the time and the resources, the money it has cost the municipality. So they're looking at consolidating some things. Are there any questions, comments on that one? That's for your information. Sorry. Go ahead, Councillor Digdon.
I know, I heard that a couple of times tonight, Councillor Digdon, but
That's
I just
okay,
have
that's
to.
what we're here for.
The FOIPOP is a great thing, and that if there's stuff that's being done wrong or allegedly being done wrong, you can go in, you can see what's being done and all that. But there's a great monetary cost, especially to a small municipality like this. And we've been going through that here lately, so it's kind of too bad that there wasn't a way to recoup some of this money, you know, because I know our CAO and his staff have been working long and hard at this. Some of the staff that's normally doing other work has been delegated to take care of this stuff, and you know, because of some people wanting answers, it's costing the whole municipality a lot of money, that's all. And by no means should they be not entitled to those answers. And, you know, there shouldn't be a deterrent put there by no means, but at the same time, there is a cost associated with these requests. That's all, that we can never get back. It's,
Right.
you know, that's all. Yep, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, anything else? Counselor Madden?
So is, just being new here recently, is this something that just came about?
Did you-
Or has this been going on?
The changes, you mean? The changes are,
The change, yeah,
the changes are new.
the changes are new.
Boy
okay.
Pop has been there.
Yes, I understand that. I'm just wondering if it's all of a sudden just, you've been talking about it over the last 2 years,
No,
1
this
year?
was- this was something
So,
that
so
was-
brand new,
yeah.
okay. Thank you.
Number 12, we have financial requests. There aren't any at this time. 13, agenda topics for next meeting. Notice of motion by councilors. Anything at all? Okay. Number 14, question period. Alex, did we have anything question period wise? Nope, okay. So our next item is number 15, in camera. So we need motion to go in camera. Okay. Seconded by Councillor Bork. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Contrary minded,